Can the RAVPower, also known as the NewQ, FileHub help on field trips? That's what we're going to discuss. I recently purchased a NewQ, aka RAVPower FileHub, and started to test its capabilities. There are a number of YouTube reviews of the main features of this unit, but I was interested in features that weren't clear on how they were used. I wanted to share with you my initial learning experiences with this device. I got the FileHub to back up photos from my camera's SD card, but then I wanted to see if it could be used on birding field trips, especially with a group of beginners. As you will see in this video, I concluded that there are FileHub limitations for such an activity. The unit didn't come with a carrying case, so I bought for it the Lacto hard drive carrying case. So here are some of the features of the NewQ FileHub. It has a one-button SD card reader to a USB slot. I would call that my hard drive. Wireless access, copying, transfer of files between the smartphone, my iPhone, the SD card, and HD. Could be a travel router, could be a power bank. There was a certain amount of confusion about on the Amazon on questions asked exactly how wireless worked. So I had this little schematic. The smartphone tends to control a lot of the features on the FileHub. An SD card can be inserted. There is a USB port for a drive. There's also an Ethernet cable port. And here is what my unit looks like. On the left, you can see the blue SD card that's pushed in just pretty much flush. I had to use my nail on my thumb to push it in high and deep enough for it to catch. And then there is some of the ports, a USB on the left, an Ethernet on the right, and a charging port in the center. Now again, this is identical to the RAVPower FileHub. So let's test the one-button SD card backup first. I took 30 high-quality bird photos and 10 videos, about 10 seconds each, on my Nikon P1000 camera SD card. That's going to be my primary source of photographs. So it's over a gigabyte. According to the Amazon reviews of the NewQ device, backing up an SD card to an attached drive was about 1 gigabyte per minute. Then there was one that said it was 1 gigabyte for 70 seconds, or about 14.3 to 16.7 megabytes per second. So I backed up my SD card, test bird photos and videos to an attached HD on the FileHub, and I timed it with a handheld stopwatch, and I got about the same information, 14.3 megabytes per second. But in a field situation, I'll probably be using flash drives. However, backing up the SD card to an older flash drive reduced the backup speed to 4.3 to 4.8 megabytes per second. And that would be over 4 minutes to back up the test bird pictures and video. That's kind of a bottleneck situation if I wanted to make a number of these backups for field trip participants. There's another way of doing it, which is a standalone SD card reader that you just put the SD card in the reader, and it then reads it to some sort of device. So I had an older standalone SD card reader and a new SanDisk SD card reader to compare backups with the previous numbers. I'm not going to show you here, but I also did it to the my iPhone. It's interesting that the older one with just a single USB adapter to the iPhone worked fine, but the SanDisk to that same adapter said that my old SE didn't have enough power. But anyway, backing up the SD bird test material using the old reader, the card reader, to a desktop computer, I selected the photo videos and dragged them to this folder, gave a speed of about 14.8 and 14.9 megabytes per second. But the new SD reader was unbelievable. With the same transfer material, gave 119 megabytes per second. So the one-button backup conclusion I make is that for traveling without a computer, the FileHub is an effective way of backing up SD card, photos, videos to a small external drive. If a laptop or tablet, for instance, was on the trip, an SD card reader would be a quicker way of doing this. Obviously, the iPhone is, in a sense, a computer, but I'm just going to say about laptop or tablets. So it does work. Okay, a little of my experiences learning some of the FileHub's other functions, including the share folder. Especially I'm interested in that, to share things among a group of people in the field. The unit came with a 42-page manual. I'll show you later that there's actually a 123-page manual for this system. And the manual is not very clear. In fact, I suggest that you get the PDF file and read it on your screen. And it's hard to follow, not intuitive. There is an app that comes along with it. It's called NewHub, and I got the NewHub app on the iPhone. I assumed that it did everything. Turns out it does not do everything, and I'll show you that in a second. So the first thing you need to do is you need to attain a Wi-Fi connection from the iPhone to the FileHub, and here I'm showing you that I have made a determination already on the FileHub to go with a 5G setup, and you can do that on the FileHub itself. And so I click on that to get a Wi-Fi connection between the iPhone and the FileHub. The password is 111111. I think of it as 4 ones, but there are 8 ones is the password for this FileHub. And then you can open this app, this NewHub app, and this is what you see. And there's lots of features here that I didn't pick up on the manual. Some of them I actually saw with the reviews on YouTube. But it's interesting. If only the SD is hooked up, underneath this file management, there's nothing, just blue. But if you attach an SD card in that slot, and then an external hard drive, then you see 2 dots. And it wasn't clear to me until I saw it demonstrated that you can move from the SD card to the HD in terms of the amount of information that's on those. And so what you do is you drag the screen on the iPhone to the left, and you can drag it from the SD information on the top to the hard drive. Now I should mention that I did a number of testing, and I chose different examples, so it may not be clear to you that that's what's happening. So don't be confused about the changing of the amount of that's in an SD or perhaps in the hard drive. So the main functions the iPhone controls, you go to this file management and you click on that, and that will take you to the SD and HD information. Now, one of the things that was not intuitive to me is to figure out where you are. So on the top of some of these screens, it says internal storage. Well, it's internal in relationship to the iPhone. And what you need to do is, if you want to look at that SD card or the hard drive that's attached to the FileHub, you have to change to external storage. In addition to that, another clue as to where you are is at the bottom of the app screen. You can either see that you're in the NewHub area, or you're in the iPhone. And I'll show you why there's some confusion. I had some confusion with this later. So there is something called an in-app camera possibility. I want to tell you about the camera photo and the share as well, because I'm interested in sharing information. So this in-app camera is a feature that if you activate it, you'll then see the camera on the in my case the iPhone, and I can take a photo or a video. I think there's a flash possibility and changing between the camera facing forward or backwards, etc. And the idea here is that when you take a picture through this camera app, it doesn't load into the iPhone. Instead, it loads into the FileHub, either to the SD or the HD attached information. And so what happens is it establishes a folder called camera. Now, I should mention here that I'm using some old SD cards. This one actually had a firmware update for the Nikon P1000. That would be the only thing that would have been on that card. So again, I'm using different graphics to illustrate different points. You also see that there's a share folder that's on the top. So I found that if I take the camera pictures, i.e. pictures through my iPhone camera to the FileHub, and both the SD and HD are on the FileHub, the pictures only go to the camera folder on the HD, something to keep in mind. So let's see a little bit about some of the features here. So I'm in a camera folder, and I look at it, and it says Joel's iPhone 3, but I'm not in my iPhone. I'm in the external hard drive on the NewHub app on the FileHub itself. So I click on that to open that up, and then I see photo and video. Click on the photos, and in this particular trial I had 2 photos there. And then what I can do with that multi-select on the upper right is if I click on that, it then gives me the opportunity of selecting one of the files. Now this is in fact 9 photos that I think there are 9 there from my test sequence. So I can, on the upper left, press select all. And if I do so, then on the bottom left you can see it now says copy to. So if there's a copy to, there's somewhere going to be a paste. So as soon as I click copy to, I find this. But there's nothing on this screen that says paste. And it confused me initially, but in fact, this is internal storage. I'm on the iPhone. I'm going to have to go into those folders to see how I can paste something. On the other hand, what I can do is I can change the top from internal storage to external storage. In other words, taking what I just copied that was on the FileHub, and then move it in between the SD and the HD on the FileHub by choosing external storage. So if I choose external storage here, now I'm probably on the SD card, and I can go into the share, and when I go into the share, I can then paste it. If you notice on the bottom, it says paste, so I could actually paste those 9 JPEGs right here at this level. Apparently the share folder on the SD card and any external HD, and also I think the camera, if it's used, is created by the FileHub. Also, photos and videos in the FileHub share folder also makes them available apparently on the app's opening screen, the photos and video areas. I want to show you that. So here is another, we're still in this NewHub app. We have the videos and photos, and that leads into the share folder. Now, I had a lot of problems initially learning all this stuff, using the instruction books and expectations about that the app covered everything. Give you an example. So here in the settings, there was a guest user, but I didn't understand where to put a password for guests. You don't want guests to have free reign to go all the way into your iPhone. There's an administration. I could enter a password and change the password there for administrator, but there was nowhere where it appears that I could do that for a guest. There's another thing that I couldn't figure out, and that is that there was a review on Amazon that said, this person says, I got this tools to back up my photos on the road without having to bring a laptop. With the app, it is a piece of cake. Now, this is the thing. It does not just copy entire SD cards, but if you use the app, it can skip files that were copied before. It is not very fast, but works at a steady pace, great value for money. And in fact, there's a lot of questions about how the backup works on that HD. So I want to show you this. I couldn't figure out how you can do a selective save. So every time you do a backup, a new folder is created for the backup. Okay, so a new folder is created, and this would be on that external attached hard drive. So I did a 3-picture backup, and then I did another 2 pictures on my camera on that SD, and then put that in there, and I got 5 pictures, or actually 8. So I did 3. 3 plus 3 is 8. So there were 2 backups, and it just was a cumulative backup. There was no selective situation. So I'm not quite sure how that person got that on the app. If you can figure it out and put it in the comment section, I would appreciate it. Now, as I indicated to you, and I'm going to put the links in the show notes here, that there is actually a 123-page manual for the RAVPower, which is identical to the NewQ. Okay, and you might want to get that instead and get that PDF file. Now, it points out, and so does the original small manual, that after Wi-Fi connection is established between, let's say, my iPhone and the FileHub, you can use a address on the iPhone browser and have your own set of instructions. The address is 10.10.10.254, and it operates like that NewHub app. But actually, there's some features it doesn't have, but then there are a lot of features it does have that the NewHub app did not have. So this is what it looks like after I do that, I put in that 10.10.10.254. You notice that there is no in-app camera ability. At least I couldn't find it here. Can establish passwords for guest and administrator using this approach. And so there's a user manager here, administrator, or guest. And as you can see on the right, that now I can establish a password for guests. And I did a simple one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I am interested in this idea about sharing images and video with guests in the field. And so I want to tell you about the share folder and the photos video area. So if I'm in guest mode, In other words, I came in, I entered those numbers. I actually had to probably put it in a password. If I'm in guest mode and I've done all that, and I press Explorer, it seems I'm only restricted to the share folder. If I open up that share folder, in this case it's probably on the SD card, it opens up and there are a set of boxes on the right. You notice it doesn't say copy to. So what I've done here is I've checked off all the boxes using that checkbox. And then opening that wrench, I see a copy. Okay, so I press copy. And then I couldn't figure out, it doesn't say copy to, by the way, it just says copy. And I haven't found any place I can paste these copied files to. I assume that, I've actually copied them. It really was frustrating. Another thing about this Explorer area with these graphics is that I can't move them across. I have to click on them individually to see them. And if I click on one of them, it says on the bottom open in, and then I clicked on that and it says the file cannot be downloaded at this time. So it's another thing that I never quite learned. In guest mode, if you click on the photo option there, it then will show you the photos that are in the share folder. And in this particular case, it's possible to swipe through the images. So for guests, if I had a bunch of photos and I wanted them to look at them sequentially, it would be better to look at that photo area. Now, there's some quirks. I did enough testing that I found something very strange, that all of a sudden I got Chinese characters, as you can see on both the left and the right. In fact, the left has a mixture. I'm not quite sure how to repeat that, but I've done enough testing that suddenly you got that bug in the program. Okay, so let's look at, now that you've seen my learning, let's look at whether we can use the FileHub on field trips, and especially birding field trips. So can the FileHub help enhance birding skills during the field trips, and are there other ways of doing the same thing? So my ideal beginning birding field trip is that the success of participants is not dependent on their ability or familiarity to use optical or electronic equipment. I'll emphasize that in a second. That everyone sees each encountered bird species with adequate time spent on each sighting. And also I should point out that the trip leader should get some feedback, should know whether the participants are actually seeing the bird that he wants or she wants them to see. So, for example, you don't need binoculars to see birds, but I wouldn't know if you're looking at the same bird I'm looking at. And you might be, moving your head back and forth. The person on the bottom might be looking at a different bird than what I am pointing out. So those are problems. Now, if I had a spotting scope on a tripod, a fixed area on a bird, then, a group of people could see through there and see the bird that I'm looking at. But there's limited view time per person. I mean, birds move out of view. Someone can kick the tripod. Some people have never used a spotting scope. If you don't look down at the right angle to see that sweet spot, you may see just a black circle. There's no opportunity to find focus between people, and many of them are embarrassed, given the pressure here, that they won't tell you that they don't see the bird in the scope for one reason or another. So one way of avoiding this that I've been experimenting with is to see whether we can see the bird in some sort of screen or monitor. show you how this works. So in terms of the spotting scope and tripod, it's possible to take a digital camera, put it against the ocular lens, and see what the scope is seeing. And actually, we'll talk about taking the picture later. But the cameras are relatively small, and if people were huddled around it, it would be difficult. In addition to that, if you hand held it, it's difficult to get that sweet spot. There are adapters that attach to tripods, but then it makes the tripod less useful, or at least the spotting scope and tripod less useful. So the adapter is on the ocular, and the iPhone or the smartphone is pressed against it. However, and I have a YouTube video on this, and tell you about that at the very end. But the Nikon P1000 is a camera that acts like a spotting scope, and I can put a field monitor on that, a 7-inch field monitor, very bright monitor, and so the people can lots of people can see what the camera is seeing at the same time. Can take a photo video. If the bird flies away, I still can show people what they're looking at, and people can use their binoculars, see the bird, and then shift their eye and also see it on the monitor in much higher magnification. So this has real possibilities. It's a little bit awkward. The camera is very heavy, the Nikon P1000, to lug around this equipment. So continuing about my ideal beginner's birding field trip, if we take bird photographs in the field, they should be available quickly to each participant. So I was thinking, hey, maybe the FileHub can do that. And any technology used, however, should be efficient, not time-consuming, and doesn't interfere with the regular use of normal field equipment, like the camera or the spotting scope or binoculars. So let's talk about photographs. Now, if you have an iOS system, i.e. like an iPhone, there's something called AirDrop. And AirDrop is part of the system. So if I had a spotting scope and had my iPhone against it, took a photo, I can pick one of those photos and send it out AirDrop to other people who have iPhone-like devices, and I can transfer that photo to all of them in the field. So that's a possibility. For the P1000 camera, the iPhone maybe could take a picture of the screen from the camera and do the same situation. I think that's really too awkward. I don't think that's a good possibility. Interferes with the camera operation, blocks the screen monitor or field monitor, and from what I tried, I couldn't get really great quality. Now, it turns out that my camera, which is a Nikon camera, actually has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth possibilities, and you can combine these two. The app that enables it to do this is called SnapBridge, which is for both iOS and Android phones. So what happens is the Nikon P1000 takes a photo, and SnapBridge can see all the photos on the camera and can download photos to the iPhone. And then what I can do is then I can send that out with the AirDrop technique. Or what I could do actually is I can go, if other people had SnapBridge as well to my single camera, they could see the photos and pick and choose which one they want to download. There is a 5-device limit, and SnapBridge is sometimes very difficult to set up, and one needs to do so before the trip. In order to figure out if it's working, you needed to set it up with the camera that you're going to be using. So this has possibilities. If the field trip had some sort of precursor meeting that train people in terms of what they were going to see, we might be able to do this and at least have 5 people in the field directly get information from the camera. But looking at iPhones in general, I anticipate from online surveys that about a half of field trip participants with smartphones would have an iPhone with them. And having only half or less of the participants with access to iPhones is probably not a problem, as group sharing and learning is sometimes more valuable than single learning situations. And as far as Android phones are concerned, apparently there's a way to use an iPhone to send photos to an Android phone. I do not have access to one, and so I didn't test that. And of course, there's another possibility as well to try and do the same thing, which is establish beforehand a group email address and send emails with field photos to the group in the field. Depends on a good Wi-Fi connection, and the attachments would probably need to be reduced in size to make it more efficient. But let's look at the FileHub field trip possibilities. So again, when I bought this, I bought it mainly for the SD card being backed up to an external small hard drive attached to it. But then I saw this, this possibility that look at all those people sharing some sort of, perhaps it's a photo. And wouldn't it be neat, I thought to myself, and that's the impetus for this whole video, that this group who would be in the field, there wouldn't be this connection, Ethernet connection. They're not quite dressed for the field. I don't expect them to have large electronic devices like the person in the middle. But when I were to take a picture of a bird in Upper Newport Bay, and video would take a lot of gigabytes, that they might be able to see that again and again. So that was my idea. However, honestly, to be able to do this and follow this thing, this timeline, is I would take a photo or a video. I would have to, I don't want to remove the SD card from the camera. I would use SnapBridge to bring it into my iPhone. I would then have to pick one of those photos. In the meantime, I would be logging in as an administrator on the FileHub using the 5G technology. And then I would be taking that photo that I want everybody to see, put it in a share folder, and then those people would have to then log on. And they would have to get on the FileHub Wi-Fi. That's that password 8 ones. And then they wouldn't have this that app. Instead, they would use the browser and the address 10.10.10.254. They would then have to go in with their own password and then choose the photos, or at least to be able to see them. So I don't think that's going to be reasonable. There's a slow transfer mode. The FileHub guest mode limits Wi-Fi devices to about 5 viewers. I don't see a limitation to the airdrop from the iPhone. I don't see how guests can save FileHub images. Guest entry instructions are overly complicated for most in the group, and especially in a field situation. So there's just too many steps to complete the transfer when I had other ways of doing it. Now, what about the possibility of using the FileHub as an SD backup to people who might bring, let's say, their own flash drives? So in this case, I'd have to remove the SD card from the Nikon P1000, put it in the FileHub, and then do this one-button backup. I'd probably do one first on my own flash drive, so I'm not going to ruin anything. And then, but this is taking a long time. This would take a very long time, be very disruptive. I thought about using a USB hub on the FileHub, but you can't do that. You only have one USB memory device. You can't have a hub and then multiple memory devices. You can't do that. The other possibility, of course, would be to take the SD card from the camera and put it in an SD card reader. It's very, very fast. But then there's some questions, some problems. The SD card removed from the camera to the FileHub or the SD standalone reader inactivates camera use unless I put in additional SD cards. And that doesn't make sense. And then field trip participants need to bring their own flash drives. I don't expect them to bring a computer for FileHub backups. It's a relatively slow process, taking up field time for other activities. And how would they use the drive? What would they plug the flash drive into or the SD card reader? I'm not going to require them to bring laptops or tablets. In addition, if I went in this direction, I would have to reduce the number of photos and videos to transfer to participants. But my usual method, camera method, is to take continuous photos, not single shots, and multiple videos of the same subject, and later edit the results and pick the best segment photo for presentations or YouTube videos. So the conclusion is that I'm glad I went through this exercise and learned about some group sharing functions of the FileHub. I'll help at least that first part of the talk for those of you who are not interested in field trips per se was helpful. It is unlikely, however, that the share feature for guests is workable on an actual birding field trip in the field to meet my teaching goals. So this has been another of my JDW talks. I have YouTube talks on genealogy topics, sensor resources, Ellis Island immigration, natural history topics, virtual birding field trips, birding optics, and I'm going to show you the first image of my birding optics YouTube videos, Orange County birds, and other areas. So I have a number of, I'm interested in leading field trips, making it as efficient as possible. I have one YouTube video on leading birding field trips. I have 2 videos on understanding, using, and fixing binoculars. That's one of my more popular ones, 2 videos. I have one on teaching a beginning birding group how to adjust binoculars so they can see in advance how to do that so you don't have to spend too much time at the beginning of your field trip. I have a video that is about teaching how to use a spotting scope and some of the etiquette of that. I have a video on using field monitors on my Nikon camera as a spotting scope alternative. And so I continue to look at possibility of using technology to increase learning on field trips. And this yellow-crowned night heron immature will be my picture for this talk. So go out in the field and enjoy yourself. You don't need all this fancy equipment, but it will help you in the right situations.